episode of Spooky Saturday. In this week's episode, I'm going to be telling you some creepy ghost stories from Reddit. So, without further ado, let's get spooky. So this first one is called Old Lady in the Rocking Chair. So when I was in kindergarten, me and my older sister, then in 3rd grade, shared a room. We had a bunk bed and she had top bunk and I had bottom. But one night I was sleeping peacefully and then I fell out of my bed. So I just got back on my bed and fell asleep again. But then it happened again and I looked around my room and there was an old lady in a rocking chair, which we didn't even have in our room. And she was typing on a typewriter. And I woke my sister up and she seen the exact same thing and we both ran into our parents' room screaming and crying. My stepdad walked us back and there was no old lady, no rocking chair, and no typewriter. It's still one of the craziest things I've ever experienced. Ooh, very creepy, I'm not gonna lie. If I woke up, fell out of my bed, got back in, woke up again and saw like some creepy old lady in a rocking chair, I would probably freak out. Next up, rocks thrown at me as a kid. Very interesting title. This experience happened when I was 12 years old. I was visiting my hometown in mid-August. My friends were already back at school, so I decided I would take a walk to one of the monuments at the top of town. As I'm walking around, I can hear the distant sounds of rocks hitting other rocks. They sound pretty close, but it's the middle of the afternoon and it was sunny, so I just dismissed it and thought it was my imagination. I was there for about 10 minutes, and the whole time I was there, I could periodically hear the clacking of stones nearby, and I decided to head back to my grandma's house. A couple of weeks go by, and it had completely slipped my mind, until one evening a bunch of us were gathered near the base of the hill, looking at the monument, when we all saw a shadow figure walk near the monument and disappear into thin air. I thought this could be my imagination or dust, but it was a dark, human-shaped figure. The sun was setting behind the monument, and you could see it clearly. A handful of us saw it, and we were shocked, and we all had the chills after what we had just seen. After we had seen it, a brave handful of us had decided to walk up the hill to see if we can spot anything. By then, it is full-on dark outside. While we were up there, one of my friends had told me to never go up there alone, as there are spirits that will try and throw rocks at you. I still get chills down my spine whenever I think of the sound of rocks hitting rocks. Ooh, creepy. I kind of like that one. Short and sweet breath. I think that was cute. Another terrifying experience in the barn. Ooh, could this be aliens? Probably just ghosts, but it would be cool if it was aliens. You couldn't ask for a more beautiful spring day in 1984. I had just started as a drummer in a high school rock band. The night before, my older brother and 2 friends of ours were practicing our new songs in the barn. I was really excited that they said I could be their drummer. I was just dying to get back to practicing that day. The only problem with that was the drum set was in the barn and no one else was home. I normally wouldn't even think about going in that barn alone because of strange and terrifying things that would happen in there, and especially when there was no one home. But because I was so excited and getting back to practice, I decided to go ahead and go in. I had a plan to go in the front door that was close to the drum set. If anything weird happened, I could get out there fast. That was the plan anyway. When I got to the door and tried to open it, I noticed it was off track and could only open about 5 to 6 inches. That's alright, I thought. I can squeeze through there. So with a bit of effort, I managed to squeeze myself in. It took some time though. Great, now I can get to practice. And practice I did for at least an hour or so. Then I did a rim shot on the snare drum a little too hard, and the drum head just split open. Now I'm frustrated to say the least. I threw a tantrum, so to speak, by throwing a drumstick. It flew up into the hay on the other side of the barn. I watched it bounce into the back so scared that I forced myself through the door, tearing my clothes up and putting big scratches on my back and chest. Once I was out, I ran toward the house about 15 or 20 feet, then just collapsed. We never practiced in that band again. Not because of what happened to me, but because the lead guitarist bumped into someone or something in the dark the night before when we got done practicing. There was nobody there, and he knew it. He told my mum about it a few days later. He wouldn't even go in to get his equipment. My brother and I had to get it for him. This drumstick event was without a doubt the most terrifying I've had in my life. I always considered that the band was beyond haunted and into the realm of evil. Oh my gosh, that was creepy. And it happened to not just him, someone else, so I guess that's quite validating, you know. The next one is called Who Was in My Room? Who was in your room? Let's find out. I've recently moved, but I've had so many encounters at my previous residence, and I cannot stop thinking about this one experience I had in the basement that I need to share with you. This was back in probably 2018 or so, and me and my sister were sharing a room, and I was around 14, so I wanted privacy. The only space that we had open was the basement. The entire basement was around the size of a small bedroom, less than 150 square feet. Side note, when we first moved in and cleared out the basement, there were dozens of old pictures on brown film strips and old trinkets. So already weird. Brown strip film, that's just from the 90s and 2000s, right? That's not that old. Anyway, I moved everything down there, and the first night was great. Got good sleep and everything was fine. However, the second night I couldn't sleep, and when I did sleep, I jolt awake. At about 1 a.m., I woke up because I heard someone coming down the steps, and so I was watching as my sister came down and just stand in the doorway staring at me, which I thought was weird, but she's absolutely terrified of the basement and refuses to go down there. So I asked her what she needed a few times, and she didn't say anything, but sat on the bed instead. So I tried to go back to sleep because I was tired and had school the next morning, but something felt off. Who else thinks this was probably not his sister? I kept asking my sister what she needed, and instead of talking, she was grunting and pointing in the corner towards the blocked off area the boiler was in. And I didn't see anything, so I turned my flashlight on and looked again, and still nothing. I turned my flashlight towards my sister, and she's bolting upstairs. Whatever, I brushed it off and go back to bed, still hearing footsteps as if she's walking back to her room. I asked her the next morning why she was in my room and what she was pointing at. The girl looked me dead in the face, scared, and said, "I was not in your room last night. You know I'm scared to even walk past that door." So who the fuck was in my room? After she told me that, I got all my stuff out of the basement after school and never stepped foot down there again. Yes, I would do the exact same thing. I would probably move out the house if I could too. I mean, you're only 14 or whatever, but that would be my option. That was very creepy. This next one is called The People in My Room. I lived in a building that was over 100 years old. The current owner had made the rooms into apartments without really changing anything in the building, like the floor spirits walking around in older style clothes. What the heck? You could see the cigarette smoke and hear a piano playing. The ladies had long skirts, high collar dresses, and the men had a button shirt and suspenders. They were talking and laughing and would look over at us like we were the intruders. We both said out loud, "Do you see what I see?" And we confirmed we each saw the same thing. The next thing we knew, we were waking up and it was morning. And to this day, we still talk about that experience. Looking into the history of the building, it was a saloon many years ago. But in the light of day, it was a happy place. But we only stayed there less than a year before moving out. Yeah, I think I would probably try and move out too. I don't think I'd be wanting that every night. So I'm just going to make this week's episode short and sweet, and I will probably carry on with some more of these stories next week if you guys enjoy Reddit stories. I think they're fun because you never know if they're true or not, you know. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of Spooky Saturday. I hope you have a creepy rest of your day or evening wherever you are, and I shall see